I am Maris Tuttle, 35, and literally last weekend my rep as the family glue. Yeah, it totally backfired. The piece I'd worked my butt off to keep solid for my husband, Nolan, and our 9-year-old son, Rory? It blew up into a full-on nightmare at Rory's school talent showcase. The school board, those smug suits we all know, demanded I ignore Nolan's frantic call to flee. When I trusted him instead, the room went dead silent. "You're putting everyone at risk," they yelled, with parents staring like I'd lost it. But here's the tea. Their shade didn't break me, it lit a spark. I'm not just pushing back, I'm about to flip the script and change everything. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe and stay with me for the most satisfying takedown you'll ever hear. Looking back, it's almost wild. You wouldn't believe what we uncovered once that call set everything in motion. It started with Rory on stage, strumming his guitar, his little face glowing under the auditorium lights. I was in the third row, clapping like a fool, Nolan beside me, fidgeting. He'd been off all day, checking his phone, glancing at the exits. I chalked it up to work stress. Then, mid-song, his phone buzzed. He answered, and his face drained white. "Maris," he whispered, voice shaking, "we need to get Rory and go. Now." I froze. Nolan's not a drama guy. His eyes were wild, like he'd seen a ghost. "What's wrong?" I hissed, but he just grabbed my hand. "No time, trust me." My heart pounded. I wanted to argue. Rory was mid-performance, parents were watching, but something in his voice, raw and desperate, made me move. I slipped out of my seat, dodging glares, and headed backstage. Rory was still playing, oblivious. I signaled him to wrap up, my hands trembling. He frowned but nodded, slinging his guitar over his shoulder. Nolan was already at the side door, waving us over. "Hurry," he mouthed. We were halfway to the car when the first siren wailed, then another. My phone lit up, "School alert, bomb threat, evacuate immediately." My stomach dropped. Parents screamed, kids cried, and chaos erupted behind us. Rory clung to me, his guitar case banging against his legs. "Mom, what's happening?" he asked, voice small. I didn't know, but Nolan's grip on my arm was iron. "Keep moving," he said, steering us to the car. We peeled out as police swarmed the lot. My mind raced. How did Nolan know? He wasn't talking, just staring ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. At home, we locked the doors, Rory curled up on the couch, still in his stage outfit. I turned to Nolan. "Talk, now." He took a shaky breath. "I overheard something at work. A deal. Security contracts, big money. They needed a crisis to push it through." My blood ran cold. "A crisis? At Rory's school?" He nodded, eyes haunted. "I didn't know it was tonight, not until the call." I sank onto the couch, Rory's head in my lap. The news was already spinning it. False alarm, no real threat. But Nolan's warning saved us. Someone wanted that chaos. And now, they'd know we'd slipped their net. My phone buzzed again. School board meeting announced. They'd want answers. So would I. Rory was asleep on the couch, his guitar case still by his feet, when I sat there, staring at the TV muted on some news channel, spinning the school chaos as a misunderstanding. Nolan was pacing, phone dead from checking updates. My mind wasn't on the present, though. It was stuck years back, replaying how my family always made me feel like I was chasing their shadows. Growing up, I was the one holding things together, planning birthdays, smoothing over fights, but they never saw it. My siblings, Corinne and Elton, got the spotlight. Corinne's law degree? Endless toasts. Elton's startup? Dad framed the article. Me, Maris, the reliable one, got shrugs. I remember this one Christmas. I was 22, fresh from organizing a huge community fundraiser. Raised thousands for the local shelter. My idea, my sweat. I was buzzing to share it at dinner, but Corinne announced her clerkship and the table erupted. I waited, then mumbled about my event. Mom nodded, distracted, and said, "That's nice, Maris, but Corinne's working with a judge." Elton smirked, tossing in, "Yeah, sis, you're still playing charity hero?" I forced a laugh, but it stung. My work wasn't flashy, but it mattered. They didn't care. Another time, I spent months helping Dad with his taxes after he botched them. Sleepless nights, calls to the IRS saved him thousands. At his birthday dinner, he toasted Elton for keeping the family name strong with his tech deal. I got a pat on the shoulder. "Thanks for the paperwork, Maris." That was it. I'd bite my lip, smile, keep the peace. Always the glue, never the star. Even when I married Nolan, they were skeptical. "He's too quiet," Mom said. When Rory was born, I thought they'd soften. Nope. Corinne's promotion to partner got a family group chat blowing up. Rory's first steps? I sent a video, only Dad replied, cute. I'd lie awake wondering why my wins, my family, my community work never measured up. I wasn't jealous, just tired of being invisible. Now with this school mess, that old ache flared. If my own family didn't see me, how could I expect the school board to listen? Nolan stopped pacing, catching my expression. You okay? He asked, sitting beside me. I shook my head. Just thinking. My family never got me, and now we're up against this? I gestured at the TV, showing the school's PR guy dodging questions. Nolan squeezed my hand. They don't define you. Rory's safe because of you. That's what matters. He was right, but the hurt lingered. My phone buzzed, a text from Corinne. Heard about the school. You okay? I stared, tempted to spill everything, but she'd probably side with the official story. Now, like always, I typed back, fine, and set the phone down. The school board meeting was tomorrow. They'd try to bury this, maybe even blame Nolan. I couldn't let that happen. I'd been invisible too long. Tonight I was done hiding. Rory stirred, mumbling in his sleep. I brushed his hair back, my resolve hardening. For him, for us, I'd fight, and this time I wouldn't let anyone dim my light. Rory was tucked in upstairs, Nolan dozing on the couch, when I sat at the kitchen table, my laptop open, heart racing. The school board's press release glowed on the screen, isolated incident, no credible threat. Lies. Nolan's warning wasn't a hunch. It was real. I needed answers, and I wasn't waiting for some suit to spoon-feed them. That's when it hit me, a jolt like cold water. This wasn't random. Nolan's call, the threat, the quick cleanup. It smelled orchestrated. I started digging, fingers trembling on the keys, piecing together the truth that would change everything. Nolan worked for a logistics firm, sometimes consulting for local government contracts. He'd mentioned overhearing a weird conversation weeks ago, something about security upgrades and needing a catalyst. I'd brushed it off then, but now? I opened his work email on our shared laptop, guilt gnawing at me. There it was, a thread between his boss, Vernon Holt, and a guy named Soren Peck, a private security exec. The showcase is perfect, Soren wrote. Stage threat, max impact, board approves our contract. My breath caught. They'd planned this at Rory's school. I cross-checked Soren's name. His firm, Ironclad Solutions, had bids pending with the district. A news article mentioned their cutting-edge threat response systems. Pricey, untested. The board had balked at the cost. A fake bomb threat would scare them into signing. I dug deeper, finding a leaked memo on a local forum. Ironclad stock would spike post-contract. Someone was getting rich and my family was collateral damage. My hands shook as I screenshot everything. This was bigger than us. But then, a noise, Nolan stirring. Maris? He mumbled, rubbing his eyes. I closed the laptop, pulse hammering. Just checking emails, I lied. He frowned, sensing it. What'd you find? I hesitated, then spilled it. The emails, the memo, the plot. His face hardened. Those bastards used our kid's school. He grabbed his phone, scrolling contacts. I know a guy, Quentin Morse, old colleague, he's got dirt on Vernon. Quentin met us at a diner the next morning, pre-dawn. Rory still asleep at home with a neighbor. Quentin, wiry with tired eyes, slid us a USB drive. Vernon's been skimming contracts for years, he said, voice low. This Ironclad deal, it's his payday. Recorded him bragging about the stunt. I clutched the drive, my resolve steeling. This was our ammo. Back home, I listened to the audio. Vernon's voice, smug. School scare seals it, board's eating from our hand. My stomach churned, but this was it, proof. I backed up the files, hid the USB in Rory's guitar case. The board meeting was hours away. They'd try to spin this, maybe even come for Nolan. I pictured Rory's face on stage, so proud, unaware of the danger. No one else would get hurt, not on my watch. I wasn't just the family glue anymore. I was a fighter, and I had the truth. All I needed was the chance to use it. The kitchen clock ticked toward 5 p.m., the school board meeting just hours away, and I was a wreck, pacing with a cooling coffee in my hand. Nolan was upstairs, reassuring Rory, who kept asking why we couldn't go back to school yet. My laptop sat open, the USB drive's files copied and triple backed up. Vernon's smug voice from Quentin's recording looped in my head. School scare seals it. I had proof of their staged threat, but the board wasn't going to roll over. They'd framed Nolan as a paranoid nutcase, and the threats we'd gotten, anonymous texts, /tire, said they'd do worse to keep us quiet. Tonight, I had to face them, and I wasn't ready. I sank into a chair, staring at a photo on the fridge. Me, Nolan, Rory at the beach last summer, laughing. That felt like another life. Now, we were marked. The text started after we skipped the school's follow-up meeting. Cryptic stuff like, "Stay quiet or else." Last night, I found our car's front tire gashed. Nolan wanted to call the cops, but I stopped him. The sheriff was cozy with the board. We'd seen him at their fundraisers. No, we'd handle this ourselves at the meeting, with evidence they couldn't dodge. I opened my email, drafting a message to Quentin, thanking him for the USB. He'd warned us, "Soren's got pull, don't go alone." I'd reached out to a local reporter, Tilda Crane, who'd sniffed around Ironclad before. She agreed to meet me pre-meeting, intrigued by the tip I'd dangled. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to send her the files now, but I held back. If they were watching us, one wrong move could tank everything. Nolan came downstairs, his face tight. "Rory's okay, but he's scared." He sat across from me, rubbing his temples. "Maris, what if we're wrong? What if we make it worse?" I reached for his hand, my own shaking. "We're not wrong. You heard Vernon, they used our kids' school for profit." His jaw clenched and he nodded. "Then we hit hard tonight." I pulled up the board's agenda online, security review, a sham to push Ironclad's contract. My phone buzzed, a text from Tilda, "Got a source, says board's prepping to blame you two." My stomach twisted. They were setting us up. I showed Nolan and his eyes narrowed. "Let them try, we've got the recording." I stood, grabbing my coat. "I'm meeting Tilda. You stay with Rory." He started to argue, but I cut him off. "One of us has to be here, he needs you." He relented, pulling me into a quick hug. "Be careful," he whispered. I nodded, pocketing the USB. Outside the air was sharp, dusk settling. I glanced back at our house, lights warm but feeling like a target. The meeting loomed like a storm. They thought they could bury us, but I was done being invisible. Tonight I'd walk into their den with the truth, and they'd regret underestimating me. I stepped into the school board meeting, the auditorium buzzing with restless parents and reporters, my pulse hammering as I clutched the USB drive in my pocket. The air was thick with whispers, eyes darting toward me like I was a walking scandal. Tilda Crane had met me an hour ago in a dimly lit coffee shop, her sharp eyes scanning the audio files I'd shared. "This is dynamite, Maris," she'd said, promising to back me up tonight. But now, standing alone in this lion's den, I felt the weight of every stare. The board sat at their elevated table, faces smug, especially Soren Peck, Ironclad's slick exec, lounging like he owned the place. They were ready to bury us, and the public scorn was already cutting deep. The meeting kicked off with Vernon Holt, Nolan's boss, at the podium, his voice oily. "The talent showcase incident was a tragic overreaction," he said, glancing my way, "caused by one family's paranoia." The crowd murmured, heads turning, my cheeks burned, but I kept my chin up, gripping the chair in front of me. A woman nearby, clutching a purse, leaned over. "You're the one who ran, right? Endangered our kids?" I swallowed, forcing a calm reply. "We saved our son, you'll see why." She scoffed, turning away. Then came Soren, all polished charm. "Ironclad Solutions offers state-of-the-art protection," he pitched, flashing a PowerPoint of sleek cameras and panic buttons. "This scare proves we need it." Parents nodded, eating it up. My stomach churned. He was capitalizing on the chaos he'd helped orchestrate. The board chair, Doreen Vale, a pinched woman with a permanent frown, chimed in. "We're grateful for Ironclad's generosity. Unlike some, they prioritize safety." Another dig at us, the crowd's whispers grew sharper, like knives. I raised my hand, heart pounding, and stood when called. The room hushed. "My husband got a warning that saved our son," I said, voice steady despite my shaking hands. "This wasn't paranoia, it was planned." Gasps rippled, Doreen's eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Tuttle, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" I patted my pocket, the USB burning a hole. "I do, and I'll share it." Soren's smile faltered, just for a second. Vernon leaned forward, voice cold. "Sit down, Maris. You're embarrassing yourself." The crowd erupted. Some shouting agreement, others yelling at me to stop. A man in a baseball cap called out, "You're scaring our kids!" I wanted to shrink, but Rory's face flashed in my mind, his guitar case hiding our evidence. I locked eyes with Tilda, who nodded from the back, her phone already recording. "I'm not the one who should be embarrassed," I shot back, sitting but holding Doreen's gaze. The room felt like it was closing in, their contempt a tidal wave. They thought they'd shamed me into silence, but I was just getting started. Tilda's nod was my lifeline. Tonight, I'd weather their storm, because tomorrow, we'd bring the thunder. The auditorium's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the school board meeting spiraled, and I sat rigid, the USB drive in my pocket feeling heavier with every lie they spun. Doreen Vale, the board chair, leaned into the microphone, her voice dripping with authority. "We've heard enough disruptions," she said, eyes locked on me. "Let's address the real issue: reckless behavior that endangered our children." My heart sank as she nodded to Vernon Holt, who stood, holding a stack of papers like a weapon. They weren't just dismissing us, they were framing Nolan, and the crowd was eating it up. Vernon cleared his throat, voice smug. "Nolan Tuttle, a former employee, has a history of erratic behavior," he said, sliding on reading glasses. "We have emails, sent from his work account, ranting about conspiracies at the school." He held up a printout, and my stomach twisted. Nolan, beside me, gripped my hand, his knuckles white. "Those aren't mine," he whispered, but the crowd's murmurs drowned him out. A woman behind us hissed, "You should be ashamed." I wanted to scream. They'd faked it, just like the threat. Doreen took the mic again. "These emails, combined with his actions at the showcase, suggest a troubled individual," she said. "We're pursuing legal action to protect our community." The room erupted, parents clapping, others shouting, "Lock him up!" My throat tightened. They were painting Nolan as a villain to bury their scheme. Soren Peck, smirking from the side, caught my eye, his confidence infuriating. They thought they'd won. I stood, shaking but resolute. "This is a lie," I said, voice cutting through the noise. "Those emails are fabricated. We have proof of your real plan." The crowd jeered, but I pressed on. "Ironclad staged the threat to push their contract." Doreen banged her gavel. "Enough, Mrs. Tuttle. You're out of order." A security guard started toward me, and Nolan tugged my arm. "Maris, sit," he urged, but I couldn't. Tilda Crane in the back was filming, her eyes urging me to keep going. Then Vernon dropped the hammer. "We also have footage," he said, gesturing to a screen. A grainy video played, Nolan supposedly sneaking near the school's back entrance days before the showcase. The crowd gasped. "That's not me," Nolan shouted, standing. But the damage was done. Parents were on their feet, yelling. The guard reached us, looming. "Ma'am, you need to leave," he growled. I clutched the USB, my mind racing. If they kicked us out now, our evidence might never see light. I leaned into Nolan, whispering, "We can't lose this." He nodded, jaw tight. As the guard grabbed my arm, Tilda pushed through the crowd, phone still rolling. "Let her speak," she shouted. A few parents hesitated, glancing her way. Doreen's face twitched. She hadn't expected media pushback. The guard paused, unsure. In that split second, I knew we were cornered but not beaten. They'd framed Nolan to silence us, but their lies were fragile. One crack, our evidence, and their house of cards would fall. I just had to hold on. The auditorium was a pressure cooker, the crowd's jeers ringing in my ears as the security guard's grip on my arm loosened, Tilda Crane's shout still echoing. I clutched the USB drive, my lifeline, while Nolan stood beside me, his face pale but defiant. Doreen Vale hammered her gavel, trying to regain control, but the room felt like it was teetering. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. "Check your email. You're not alone." My heart skipped. I glanced at Tilda, who was still filming, then at Nolan, who nodded. In that chaotic moment, allies emerged, and everything shifted. I slipped my phone out, keeping it low. The email was from a concerned parent, no name, with an attachment labeled Ironclad Docs. I opened it, my hands trembling, pages of internal memos, one outlining Operation Showcase, a plan to simulate a crisis for community buy-in. Another listed payouts to board members including Doreen. My breath caught. This wasn't just Vernon and Soren, the whole board was dirty. The sender added, "More of us know. Meet after." I showed Nolan, his eyes widening. "Who sent this?" he whispered. I didn't know, but it was a lifeline. The guard stepped back, distracted by the crowd's shouting. I seized the moment, raising my voice. "You want evidence?" I called, holding up the USB. "We've got recordings, Vernon admitting the threat was staged." The room hushed, even the hecklers faltering. Soren Peck's smirk vanished. He leaned toward Vernon, whispering frantically. Doreen's gavel froze midair. "That's absurd," she snapped, but her voice wavered. Tilda pushed closer, her phone trained on me. "Let her play it," she yelled. A few parents echoed her, curious now. I handed the USB to a tech guy at the front, my hands steady despite my racing pulse. He plugged it in, and Vernon's voice boomed through the speakers. "School scare seals it, boards eating from our hand." Gasps rippled. Parents turned to each other whispering. Doreen slammed her gavel. "This is out of context," she shouted, but the tech guy wide-eyed kept the audio rolling. Another voice, Soren's, chimed in. "Ironclad stock will soar." The crowd erupted, not against us now but the board. A woman in a red scarf stood pointing at Doreen. "You lied to us." Others joined, their anger shifting. I glanced at the email again, another message from the same sender. "Outside now." I nudged Nolan and we slipped toward the exit, Tilda trailing. Outside in the chilly parking lot, a small group waited. 3 parents, faces tense. One, a wiry man named Gideon Parr, spoke first. "We've been watching Ironclad too. They tried this in another district." He handed me a folder. More documents, bank transfers, names. "We're with you," he said. My chest tightened, not from fear now, but hope. We weren't alone. These strangers, victims like us, were risking everything. Nolan squeezed my shoulder, his voice low. "We've got a shot, Maris." I nodded, clutching the folder. The board was crumbling, but they'd fight dirty. With Gideon's group and Tilda's footage, we had a real chance to end this. The night wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt the tide turning. The parking lot's chill bit at my knuckles as I gripped Gideon's folder, the auditorium's chaos still echoing behind us. Nolan stood close, his breath visible in the dusk, while Tilda Crane hovered, her phone now tucked away but her eyes sharp. Gideon Parr and the other parents, Lila Henshaw and Perry Vale, watched me, their faces set with quiet resolve. Inside, Vernon's recorded voice had cracked the board's facade, and the crowd's anger was turning on them. But I knew one recording wasn't enough. We had to bury their lies for good right now before they regrouped. I took a deep breath and marched back in, ready to expose their hypocrisy and make them choke on it. The auditorium was a storm of shouts and waving hands, Doreen Vale's gavel useless against the uproar. Parents were on their feet, demanding answers. Soren Peck was slipping toward a side exit, his polished calm gone. Vernon stood at the podium, red-faced, stammering about misunderstandings. I pushed through the crowd, Nolan and Gideon at my heels, the folder heavy in my hands. Tilda followed, whispering, "This is going viral." I reached the front, climbed onto the stage uninvited, and grabbed the mic from Vernon's sweaty grip. The room hushed, every eye on me. "You want the truth?" I said, voice steady, though my heart pounded. This wasn't a mistake, it was a setup. I held up the folder. "Memos, payouts, plans. Your board sold our kids to go safety for profit." I tossed the papers onto the projector, Gideon's documents glaring under the light. Operation Showcase, bank transfers to Doreen, Vernon's signature. Gasps erupted. A man yelled, "Read it." I did, my voice rising. "Simulate a crisis to secure Ironclad's contract. They used our school, our kids for this." Doreen lunged for the mic, but Nolan blocked her, his broad shoulders firm. "Let her finish," he growled. The crowd roared agreement. Soren froze by the exit, caught. I turned to Vernon, locking eyes. "You framed my husband, lied to these families. Why? So Ironclad stock could soar?" I mimicked his recorded voice, and the room exploded. Parents shouting, some rushing the stage. Vernon backed away, tripping over a chair. "This is slander," he sputtered, but no one listened. A woman in the front row, the same one who'd snapped at me earlier, stood, tears streaming. "My daughter was there, how could you?" Others echoed her, their betrayal raw. Tilda was filming again, streaming live. I stepped back, handing the mic to Gideon, who read more, names, dates, dollar amounts. The board sat stunned, their power crumbling. Doreen tried to speak, but boos drowned her out. Soren bolted, but parents blocked the door, demanding he stay. I looked at Nolan, his eyes shining with pride. We'd done it. Exposed their rot in front of everyone. The crowd's fury was our shield now. As security scrambled, useless against the mob, I knew this was our exit. We slipped off the stage, Gideon and Lila covering us. Outside, the air felt lighter, but the fight wasn't over. They'd come for us harder now, but we'd shown the world their truth. And that was just the start. The cold night air hit my face as we left the auditorium, the crowd's roars fading behind us. Nolan's hand was warm in mine, grounding me while Gideon, Lila, and Perry walked close, their steps quick and purposeful. Tilda had stayed inside, still filming the chaos we'd unleashed. My heart was still racing from the stage. The board's stunned faces burned into my mind. We'd exposed their lies, but now we were targets. Gideon led us to a quiet diner a few blocks away, its neon sign flickering. Inside, over steaming coffee and greasy fries, I shared a moment with these strangers turned allies, their warmth a stark contrast to my family's cold betrayal. We slid into a corner booth, the vinyl seats creaking. Rory was safe at home with a neighbor, but I texted Nolan to check in, my fingers shaky. "He's fine," Nolan murmured, pocketing his phone. Gideon leaned forward, his wiry frame tense. "You two shook the hive tonight," he said, voice low. "But they'll sting back." Lila, her dark curls framing a tired face, nodded. "My son's school got hit by Ironclad's drills last year. Same playbook, scare, then sell." Perry, a stocky guy with a soft voice, added, "They blacklisted my wife when she asked questions." I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. "My family, they'd never have my back like this," I admitted, the words slipping out. Nolan squeezed my knee under the table. Lila's eyes softened. "Mine either," she said. "Called me dramatic when I warned them about Ironclad, but you?" She gestured around the booth. "We're your people now." My throat tightened. I'd spent years chasing my siblings' approval. Corinne's smug nods, Elton's backhanded jabs. They'd never shown up like this. Not once. Gideon pulled out a notebook, scribbling names. "Other parents are reaching out. We're building a network." Perry slid me a burner phone. "Use this, they're probably tracking you." I stared at it, the weight of our fight sinking in. These people who'd lost as much as we had were risking everything. I thought of Mom's last call, dismissing Nolan's drama. She'd never get this, choosing loyalty over blood. Nolan broke the silence. "What's next?" "The board's cornered, but Soren's got pull." Gideon tapped his pen. "We leak more to Tilda, keep the pressure on. Lawsuits maybe." Lila reached across, touching my hand. "You're not alone, Maris, we've got your back." I nodded, blinking hard. For years I'd been the family glue, ignored. Here I was seen, valued. The diner's warmth wrapped around me, fries untouched but the conversation alive. Rory's face flashed in my mind, his guitar, his trust. For him, I'd keep fighting. With these allies, I wasn't just surviving, I was building something stronger than the family I'd lost. The diner's warmth lingered in my bones as we drove home, the burner phone heavy in my pocket, Nolan's hand steady on the wheel. The board meeting's chaos felt like a lifetime ago, but the threats hadn't stopped. A new text on my regular phone from an unknown number. "You'll regret this." My stomach churned, but Gideon's words echoed. "They'll sting back." We'd exposed their lies, but now we were in their crosshairs. Back at the house with Rory asleep upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table, mapping out our defenses. It was time to set new boundaries, to protect my family and carve out a fortress against the storm coming our way. Nolan locked the doors, checking the windows like a ritual. "We need a plan, Maris," he said, his voice low, eyes scanning the dark street outside. I nodded, pulling out the burner phone. Gideon had texted, "Change your routines, watch for tails." My hands shook as I typed back, "Got it, cameras tomorrow." We'd already ordered a security system, motion sensors, doorbell cam, no more slashed tires, no more surprises. I wasn't naive. Soren and the board had money, connections. They'd try to silence us, maybe worse. I opened my laptop, deleting old social media posts, anything they could twist. Corinne had texted earlier, "You're on the news, why didn't you tell me?" I ignored it. She'd picked the board's side, like always. Instead I emailed Tilda, attaching more of Gideon's documents. "Keep pushing," I wrote. Her reply was instant. "Story's blowing up, stay safe." Safe. That word felt fragile. I glanced at Rory's guitar case by the couch, the USB still hidden inside. Our evidence was our shield, but it painted a target on us too. Nolan sat beside me, his jaw tight. "What if we move, start over?" I shook my head. "They'd find us, and Rory deserves his home," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "Then we fight smart, no public moves without Gideon's crew." I agreed, my mind racing. We'd vary our routes, avoid predictable patterns. I'd stop answering unknown calls. 2 had come today, just heavy breathing. My old life, pleasing everyone, was gone. Now, every choice was about survival. I stood, pacing, my fingers brushing Rory's school bag on the counter. His drawing of us, stick figures smiling, stung my eyes. "He can't go back there," I said, half to myself. Nolan nodded. "Homeschool for now, we'll figure it out." I hated it, but the school wasn't safe, not with the board's claws still in it. I grabbed a notebook, jotting rules. No visitors without warning, no sharing plans online. Check-ins with Lila and Perry daily. These were our walls, our new normal. The burner buzzed. Lila. You okay? Found another parent with evidence. I smiled, typing. We're holding. Send it. These allies, this network were our strength. The board thought they could scare us into silence, but they didn't know me. Not the real Maris, the one who'd fight for her kid, her husband, her truth. I looked at Nolan, his tired eyes meeting mine. We've got this, I said, and for the first time I believed it. Our fortress was small, but it was ours, and we'd defend it with everything we had. The morning sun filtered through our kitchen blinds, casting stripes across the table where I sat, surrounded by papers and a steaming mug of tea. It had been a week since the board meeting, and the fallout was everywhere. News headlines, Tilda's viral articles, even protests outside the school. Soren Peck had been arrested, Vernon Holt was on leave, and Doreen Vale resigned in disgrace. We'd won a battle, but the war wasn't over. Rory was at the counter, sketching superheroes, his small world still wobbly but safe. I opened my laptop, driven by a fire to use our victory for more than just us, to protect other families and rewrite our story on our terms. I'd been emailing with Gideon, Lila, and Perry, pooling our evidence into a public campaign. We called it Safe Schools Now, a push for transparency and accountability. I drafted a petition, my fingers flying, demanding independent audits of school security contracts. Lila had connected us with a lawyer, Nell Carver, who was prepping a class action suit against Ironclad. You're the face of this, Maris, she'd said last night on a burner call. Me? The invisible family glue? Now I was leading. I glanced at Rory, his pencil scratching. Hey bud, draw me a hero who fights bad guys, I said. He grinned, sketching a figure with a cape. Like you, Mom? My heart swelled. I wasn't just fighting for him, I was showing him what strength looked like. I turned back to my laptop, uploading Tilda's latest report to our campaign site. It detailed Ironclad's shady deals in 3 other districts thanks to Gideon's network. Comments poured in, parents, teachers, even kids, all demanding change. Our name, Tuttle, wasn't a punchline anymore. It was a rallying cry. Nolan walked in, fresh from a call with Quentin Morse, who'd dug up more on Vernon's finances. He's lawyering up, but he's scared, Nolan said, kissing my forehead. I nodded, adding Quentin's info to our files. Good, let him squirm. We were relentless, not for revenge, but for justice. I posted a video to the campaign page, a simple one, me in our living room, talking about Rory's fear during the showcase, urging parents to join us. They tried to silence us, I said, voice steady. Don't let them silence you. It hit 10,000 views by noon. My phone buzzed. Corinne again. Maris, call me. This is big. I deleted it. She'd had her chance. Instead, I texted Lila. Video's up? Lawyer meeting tomorrow? She replied. Proud of you. On it. That was family now. I stood, stretching, and hugged Rory, his drawing now a fierce hero with my messy bun. That's you, he insisted, and I laughed, tucking it on the fridge. Our legacy wasn't my parents' approval or the board's lies. It was this fight, this impact. I'd reclaimed our name, not for them, but for every kid like Rory, every parent like me. And we were just getting started. The kitchen was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and Rory's soft snoring from the couch, his sketchbook splayed open with heroes in capes. It was late, the campaign emails sent, the lawyer's notes filed, and Nolan upstairs finally sleeping after another long day. I sat at the table, a cold tea mug in my hands, staring at the fridge where Rory's drawing of me, his hero, hung. The past weeks had been a whirlwind, exposing the board, building Safe Schools Now, becoming a voice for others. But tonight alone, I felt something shift. Reflecting on it all, I realized my worth wasn't in their applause or my family's approval. It was in me, in the strength I'd found, and that brought a peace I'd never known. I thought back to the showcase, Nolan's frantic call, the chaos. I'd been terrified, but I acted, trusted him, saved Rory. That choice, that spark, wasn't about being the family glue or proving myself to Corinne or Mom. It was about protecting what mattered. Growing up, I'd craved validation, chasing their praise while they celebrated Elton's deals or Corinne's titles. I'd felt small, invisible. But now, I saw it clearly. Their dismissal didn't define me. I defined me. I stood walking to the window, the night calm outside. We'd faced threats, lies, public scorn, and came out stronger. Gideon, Lila, Perry, they'd shown me what real support looked like. Rory's trust, Nolan's steady hand, those were my anchors. I didn't need to be perfect or loud or flashy. I was enough. The campaign was growing, parents joining from across the state, But this moment wasn't about the fight. It was about the quiet truth settling in my chest. I was whole. Not because we won, but because I chose to stand. I grabbed Rory's sketch, smiling at the messy bun he'd drawn. He saw me as a hero, not for the headlines, but for being his mom, for fighting. That was my legacy. Love, resilience, truth. I tucked the drawing back, my heart lighter. The board's lies, my family's shade, they couldn't touch this piece. I was free, not from them but from needing them. And that was everything. Have you ever had to fight for what's right? Even when everyone doubted you? I'm Maris, and this journey, saving my son, exposing a conspiracy, finding my strength, taught me that your worth isn't in others' eyes but in your own heart. I'd love to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments below. What battles have you faced? If my story resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it's okay to define success on their own terms. Together we can inspire each other to keep fighting, keep standing, keep shining. You've got this. Never let anyone dim your light.